From the ever-growing waste management dilemma to campaigns against plastic waste and right into further recycling models, the green economy visits the persevering highland at Chitezi landfill, and then a debatable solution to the poor waste management and disposal culture.
The available option that we have is open dumping, where mainly much of this is taken to Chitezi. It is not the best procedure, but as per now, that's what we have.
And still, the jobs of the landfill to recycling and the 40% levy on kilograms of plastic waste, a debate to maintain a preservative mechanism for the ecosystem still lives. Welcome to the green economy.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Green Frontier, and I'm Ivan TV Nkana. This is Smart 24 TV, coming to you live from plot 42, Nile Avenue, Uganda, Kampala. And of course, we are on channel 372 on DSTV and 394 on GoTV. It's yet again another edition of the green economy, the talk that transcends normal activities, and we get to talk about issues regarding human activity and then the conservation of the ecosystem. How well have we incorporated these two? It's always crucial. And whenever we come through on every Tuesday, it makes sense over time. So on this show, we shall be looking into one of the country's biggest problems. Call it the waste management dilemma. So we're generally looking at the winter of our distress when it comes to waste management. And obviously, industrialization has grown over time. Human demand for utilities, products, from beverages to packaging to utilities. So there is that demand. But then how well are we looking at the management of the waste that comes off these products? It's quite interesting. So when you look at projections, 2030 isn't so far. This is 2022. And when we look at East Africa, Uganda, Kampala to be specific, Nairobi, we are looking at an increase of waste disposal by 60%. And obviously, Dar es Salaam, 74%. So it creates a certain picture of really need for looking at how best can we deal with our human activity. So in Uganda, one of the biggest areas for conservation is called a landfill. You could talk about it, you could refer to it as basically a dumping site. So Kampala, when you look specifically at it, we are looking at waste disposal, documented, obviously, documented records that tend towards 1,000 and above tons of waste created in this city over time per day, and that heads all the way to Kitezi, Imperial. However, when we look at this crisis and then the general intervention, we are looking at some of the interesting leads up to waste management and then the disposal crisis. So there was a campaign at the fall of the previous week that led us to this. One of the institutions in Uganda, that's Makerere University Business School, decided to take the initiative. The master and the apprentices, Professor Balunywa and the students at MOOBS, decided to kickstart a campaign to kick out or to get rid of plastic waste and then polythene bags. But there is a catch to this. Besides kicking the waste out, how well can we deal with it? Is there a room for recycling, appropriate recycling, and then the upscaling? How can we model things like plastics and then polythene bags into utilities that are basically of value? First, let's take a look at this campaign and how well it was.
We all know that the polythene and plastic things destroy the environment, so we don't need to be the ones again leading to the degeneration of the environment where we live. And I think we should extend this to even cutting down of trees, which give us good weather.
Because we have been having most of these campaigns, talk of the Bulungi Wansi campaign, and then this is aimed at improving our sanitation both in the campus and then outside where we do stay. And then this is what we have carried out actually today.
If we continue to use the plastics and polymers the way we're using them today, time is going to reach, and in addition to the problems we already have as a country and as a population, we shall add on to more problems for ourselves. And guess what? The problem is not going to affect people who are 40 years and above. Their time will be gone. But us who are getting into this world, people who are so positive, people who are so youthful.
Of course, the only way to manage the plastic is to recycle it. Because it is so much, you really can't do anything about it. It's okay for you to pick it from here. But this is a very organized place. But everywhere on the street where it's not organized, in the rivers, in the lakes, we definitely need to control plastics. The tax may be to prevent usage. I mean, Rwanda no longer has Bovera, but they have not banned all the plastics because you know plastics used for packing. But this ordinary one which we use is very dangerous.
All right, now from the master and the apprentices, that's the campaigns to push out plastic waste and then the polythene bags. These are utilities that we really rely on over time, day to day. And then the consumption, the preservation of the ecosystem, how well we can put these items into use is quite critical. So Uganda, to be specific, Kampala, other cities, Gulu, talk about Jinja, Mbarara, they are dealing with the same dilemma, waste management. Now, Kampala's, like I said before, we are looking at over 1,000 tons of waste crossing over from the different areas right into Kitezi landfill. When you look at Gulu's problem is equally as repressive as Kampala's. Undocumented waste, over 80%. So how about that goes undocumented? And then the culture to manage the waste is quite abysmal. So these are issues that are quite impactful. So one of the biggest areas and avenues to manage Kampala's dragging problem is the landfill, Kitezi. It's the mother that handles all the waste, industrial, domestic, among others, from plastic to polythene and other forms of plastic. They all head to Kitezi. Now, this landfill has been in place for over 26 years. Actually, we're looking at 26 years specifically, handling all sorts of waste. And then the drag off from this is quite interesting. We could talk about the leachate. This is basically the liquid that oozes out of the different forms of waste right into the ground. So that will be part of this conversation. But let's take a look at Kitezi. How has it been of value to the people that do the scavenging work and then to the authority? We could talk about KCCA that is responsible for managing waste and then the waste disposal avenues in Kampala specifically. Let's take a look at Mother Nature and then Kitezi, how it's been useful to this drive of managing waste.
For 26 years now, Kitezi landfill has provided refuge to waste from Kampala and metropolitan areas. The dumping site in Imperere sits on 36 acres and rises up to 10 meters sky high, greeting the vicinity with a mountainous view and a stench reminiscent of the human activity and waste decomposition. I came here. I've been here for about 8 years, working with my fellows, doing this job.
Era ndi mulonzi ate erudda n'embeera omusuubuzi nkola bibiri kati.
I'm both a waste picker and a trader. We are sometimes affected. The market price sometimes goes up and we become happy and the job proceeds smoothly.
Olusozi olwo olukendeeza bwatuta tufubako ne tujjamu bino ebintu bino ne tulakita tekaluubizibwa nnyo. Naye kasita bisigalamu ne bibeeramu era olusozi luba lw'amaanyi esindika mangu ekintu ne kitumbira wano. Naye bwe tuba tuzze ffe nga tubijjamu tuno obusigala esindika nango olusozi terubeerawo lw'amaanyi.
Over 1,000 tons of waste, organic and inorganic, find their way to this endpoint on a daily basis.
nkola HD plastic automatically kyenkola ndi mulonzi naye tulina abatukulembera, tulina abatugula, tulina abajja ne batwala. HD bwe buno obuveera bwa bbulaaka naye lwakuba ennaku zino baabuwera. N'obwo olw'enzo oli buno obucupa bw'amazzi ne buno soft mubeeramu obundi obuveera bw'omugaati ne bupayinta bw'amata obwo obutono bwe tuyita soft. Then wabeerawo plastic gano amasowaani ge batakyakozesa. Mubeeramu ebyuma oluusi n'osangamu ebyo bikese ebikaddekadde obivudde ku bbaaga ebyo by'ebyuma bye tukola.
As Kampala and Uganda at large grapple with waste management and disposal, landfills, official and unofficial, have been a key consideration for environmental cleanup.
Of course, if you look at the situation that we have in Uganda, that we don't really have a proper waste management system. That most of the waste which is collected, the waste is not sorted. So you have waste containing a lot of stuff, from plastics to metals to electronic waste to organic material to pesticides. So what you have is a composite which contains a diverse range of materials. And this kind of waste, the available option that we have is open dumping, where mainly much of this is taken to Chitez. It is not the best procedure, but as per now, that's what we have.
But there are also medical waste generated from the medical facilities. It is unfortunate that in Uganda nowadays, those wastes can mix up and they move together to the swamp, which is not a good practice. You have to know about the composition of that waste. For example, giving an example of maybe industrial waste, their composition can be made out of chemical substances, the broken glasses, and biological objects, or even, in addition to wastewater, exactly, the usual one, even plus the storm water. So if you know the types of waste that are the quality of the waste, like the composition of the waste and its type, you will be able to design the necessary equipment or technology to treat that waste.
The cleanup project for the municipal waste has created a workers' community from the private partnerships with the KCCA that jointly collect municipal waste to the men and women that do the scavenging work.
Birungi ebimu bye tuyinza okugamba nti betufunye wano mu Kiteezi. Abazadde abaliwo abasinga mwe bajja akasente ndozo olaba ennamba esinga basingo maaza baweerera abaana baabwe sente bazijja wano. Ekyokubiri tuyinamu ba student abajja nga wano bakolawo sente ne baddayo ku ssomero okusingira ddala n'aba universities okugeza nze omu ku bo abadde student naye kati sikyali. Mbadde student ku Mutesa University nga nkola kibayita Bachelor of Mass Communication.
Teri lunaku tabeerawo, buli kanaku tubeerawo ne tujja ne tukola. Abamu beewummuzaamu naye ng'abamu bakola ki bajja. Bwe tulwala buli omu aba mulwadde asobola okugenda neyejjanjaba bwe babugaanyi, tulina bakama baffe ne tujja ne twekubira omulanga ne twekumakumamu nga ffe abakozi ba wano ne tusobola omujjanjaba naawona ng'obulwadde bw'amaanyi.
With a citrage of different pollutants, low and high density polyethylene, plastic polymers, and organic waste, a mixture of opportunities manifests itself on this highland, and about 800 workers ply their trade on the highland.
Nasooka kusunsulira eri ku kkubo waggulu nali nenfuna boosi eyandeeta muno najjanga musunsuzi nentuuka akaseera ne batuwa offer ne bagamba abaagala oyingira okwewandiisa ne tujja ne twewandiisa ne tufuna kaadi era muno tosobola kukola nga tolina kaadi oba nga tolina nnamba osooka okufuna kaadi ya KCCA ekukkiriza okwambuka okukola eno bwe ntyo we nayingira.
Akwira ne kampuni endala ne companies endala eziwerako nga 10 zo kabeeyi kakyaliwo lwa nsonga lwo kyayita stiff competition nti competition ekyaliwo waliwo competition within companies kati eyo ekigifudde nti wakyaliwo ka competition kubanga ziwerako.
Wano tulinawo kampuni yawe Mmanga era waliwo ebigenda awe Mmanga waliwo ebigenda e Kasangati waliwo n'ebirala ebigenda e Matugga eyo.
Growth of the manufacturing and industrial output has pushed calls for action to address the current waste dilemma. This has been spiraled by the rising population and demand for utility products.
51% of the waste generated in Uganda are not collected or treated. If we are to classify waste depending on their degradability, we have biodegradable and non-biodegradable. The biodegradable, this one can be broken down by small organisms that are found in the soil or can be broken down under natural circumstances and it will cause no harm to the soil. But we have non-biodegradable. Giving an example, plastic. A plastic bottle is non-biodegradable.
Some of them may be broken down or disintegrated depending on the polymer, but it takes a lot of time for this to happen in the normal environment. Once the plastics are in the environment, other than expecting the biodegradation, what may happen is maybe the breakdown and the disintegration to produce smaller plastics, and these are known as microplastics. And of course, these also have a challenge into the environment.
It may degrade, but after like 1,000 years, when it is left in the soil. So, but we classify it under non-biodegradable, like basin, the broken basin, broken glasses. If they are disposed in the environment, they cannot be degraded by the soil microorganism. When you look at the type of waste, like in the composition of the waste, we have solid waste and wastewater or liquid waste. Wastewater, we have waste from maybe storm water, this one from rain. We have waste like wastewater from our houses, like in town here you see, when it rains, you see those people can open their septic tank. So the waste coming out that were stored in the septic tank, these are liquid waste, wastewater.
The highland is a critical convergence point for material destined for industrial recycling. There is a catch to the effectiveness of landfills, especially with the decomposition of material of different compounds.
Much of the organic matter, once it's dumped into these areas where they don't have, it efficiently exposed to have the aerobic oxidation. Once we have this anaerobic oxidation, we produce different gases, mainly the methane, and also produce others like hydrogen sulfide. Of course, we know that these tend to contribute to the greenhouse effect. And we know the effects of the greenhouse effect because it tends to contribute to global warming and other adverse climate effect. Though this may not necessarily come from the plastics, but the major cause for this is actually from the organic material, because the waste goes into the dumping sites when it contains a mixture of substrates.
All right, now material of the landfill in Chitezi usually heads back to the industries. The manufacturing industry has grown over time, from the big investor industries to the mediocre industries, and then to those that utilize less technology. Now this has been so useful to manage the waste, especially when we talk about recycling and then upscaling that we can look at over time, right in the near future of this program. That comes of the people that are interested in building further forms of material from the waste. You could talk about the plastic bottles and others. Now, interestingly, we are looking at recycling as one of the biggest avenues or mechanisms to address waste disposal. But this comes off one of the interesting areas. While at the campaign to drive out plastics and polythene from our society, one of the people that had the chance and the initiative to address the public, that's the lady, the Dean of Students, Madam Juliet, said something about recycling being as historical as human nature is. While growing up, she says, they used to utilize molded products from molding. You could talk about the pots. The people that lived in villages for some good time practically understand what it means. So when they break down, they were recycled. So she understands it as part of our culture. So interestingly, she says we need to address this. How about you? What do you think we basically need to do? Recycling has been part of the drive for quite a long period of time. And as industrialization grows, obviously, we need to look at it as an avenue. The shortfalls can be talked about, but then what exactly did she have to say? Let's take a look at this.
Recycling is an old phenomenon in life, so please keep and dispose everything plastic where it ought to be disposed, and whoever is concerned will be able to pick them and they are recycled.
Okay, now from that insight, institutions have been very also paramount in driving the call from the locally pronounced and then understood mode of calling upon the public to live responsibly. Kampala and Buganda basically have had Bulungi once. So likewise, from the get rid of plastic waste to another institution, the International University of East Africa, had one of the most important developments as far as waste management is. They had a development in terms of technology that recycles plastics. You could talk about the water bottles that people dispose of after usage. So it was quite interesting. But before that, we are going to head for the break, and then when we come back, we shall have to be taking more about this development as the show progresses. First, the break.
Smart 24, driving business.
Every new day brings new opportunities for you to conquer the business world. Start your day with a show that will drive your business. Be the first to know the latest prices around town, the latest business information around the country and the world. We bring you in-depth analysis with exclusive interviews from key players. And of course, wouldn't you want that for your morning?